staring into Stallings. Gets
What are
the
you
call.
doing, dude?
Here's the 0-1.
What video are you going to play for me?
Turned on deep into left. Jordan can't bring it back. It's a walk-off home run by Danny Bethea. St. John's wins it 5-4, and Chapel Hill and the Tar Heels are stunned.
Fastball.
St. John's mobbing Bethea, as you can imagine, at the plate.
That's the very near equivalent in St. John's terms. They're going to talk about that hit the same way Carolina talks about Flack's home run in Alabama.
So we got Danny Bethea, assistant baseball coach at St. John's University. Danny, how you doing today, buddy?
Good, brother. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. So me and Danny were actually pro ball roommates with the Red Sox. So
That's right.
One of my best friends, and we're happy to have him on today. Who's obviously
Thanks for having me.
Straight from being a player to an assistant coach now with St. John's University. So we're going to really get into the recruiting side with Danny, as well as talk about some things that he has to deal with his college guys. So the first thing I'm going to ask you, Dan, is when you're looking for, in the recruiting side, when you're looking for a player and you're evaluating them on the field, what are you looking for in a high school player on the field?
Well, that's a pretty loaded question because I can go different routes with this. But what I will say is, the first and foremost, we're looking for athletes. We're looking for guys that, play more than one sport, guys that are able to show and their athleticism on the field. And because the most important thing for us is, it's good to have baseball skill, but it's so important to be a well-rounded athlete. And I think that playing multiple sports helps with that, because you can pick up movements from other sports and bring it back to baseball. That just improves your overall ability to play the baseball game. So that's kind of important for us. And then as far as evaluating, we're looking for tools as well. We're looking for guys that, show some arm strength or some power, or that can run a little bit. We obviously love to get every five tool player guy we see. But at the same time, we know that's not realistic. We want to look and recruit guys that have maybe two of those five, and hoping that we can develop a third one, or three, just kind of depending on the kid. We look at physicality. What's the kid's body type like? Do we think he has room to grow in about 2 to 3 years or a year or whatever the case may be? So we take that into consideration when we evaluate to the guys on the field. And like I said, you got to have the tools and the athletic ability to play, at this level at St. John's at the Division I level. And then also the other thing too is, on the field, when it comes down to the playing part of the game, how do they react to adversity? How do they react when they're getting out or things aren't going their way? Or, maybe they're 0 for 4, 3 punch outs. How are they acting off the field? As far as in the dugout, are they good teammates? Do they keep their head up? Do they react after every at bat, throwing their stuff? Because to play this game, you got to be strong mentally. And I know this, Rob, and it's, this game's so mental that you can't live and die by every pitch or every at bat, because it transfers from one at bat to the other. And you can go from, I've seen it and been a part of it, to where you're 0 for 1 with 1 punch out, and you feel embarrassed after that 1 strikeout, and you let it snowball into an 0 for 4 with 3 punch out games, and you're sitting there at the end of the game and you're like, geez, that took a turn for the worse really quickly. So we always look for one, the physicality of the kid, the athleticism, and two, are they a good teammate, how they react to adversity and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really interesting that you talked about, taking at-bats, taking a poor at-bat into the next at-bat and letting that carry on. That's something that we preach a ton with our guys. We're really, process-oriented and do a ton of work mentally. So that's really interesting you said that. One of the things that I thought was interesting that you said is you're looking for certain tools that these kids excel at. when you're looking at a guy and you're looking at a position player, and you find a guy that, let's say, doesn't do things all that well, but he can hit the ball a mile, is that a kid that you would recruit? Or let's say a kid that doesn't do things all that well, but he runs, he runs a ridiculous 60 time. Or a kid that doesn't do things all that well, but, he's 94 across the diamond. Is that something that you guys are saying, hey, we'll take a chance on a kid like that? Or are you saying, listen, you got to have another tool for us to even think about you playing at a Division I level like this?
Right. So to answer that question, that's a good question. I mean, and this is just my opinion. The only time I think, I would say there's two scenarios where we'd be, interested in a kid. Is one, if he hits the ball a mile, because everyone wants that player that has the ability to leave the yard and drive in RBIs at any given moment. And the other one is speed. But the other thing with that is you gotta be a well-rounded athlete to play this game. You can't. No one's recruiting pinch runners anymore, and no one's recruiting just DHs because. Let's say something happens during the season where your first baseman gets injured and he can only DH. Well, now you got two DHs in your lineup. Who's going to play first? So we see guys that have big power. We will talk to them and see how they progress. But at the end of the day, we really need them to be well-rounded athletes so they can be in the field. And we could, do different things with our lineup. It gives us a lot of flexibility to adjust to whatever happens during season. As far as speed-wise, I mean, in my opinion, speed really never slumps. You could drop down a bunt or, infield to get you right. But in my honest opinion, I think, especially at the collegiate level, you definitely have to be well-rounded. You just can't have one tool and hope to be successful in this game. You have to be more of a well-rounded, ball player.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm hearing the word athlete a lot, which is very interesting. So let's step off the field for a second. Is
Sure.
there something that you guys look for off the field when evaluating a high school player, or is it just what you're seeing on the field, and that's all that really matters for you guys?
No. Great question. We have to do our homework when we recruit guys. We like to bring in a certain type of guy, and so we have to do our homework. We got to talk to their coaches. We got to make sure they're doing everything right off the field as far as grades, academics. That's huge for us. At St. John's, academics is huge because they're able to get a nice big academic scholarship, and so that helps us out with the scholarship allotment to other recruits and other players. So the first thing we really look at is academics. Are they able to come to school? The other thing too that I figure I should mention, sometimes we get emails from kids that want to go to St. John's and be a engineer major. Well, you got to do your research prior because we don't have an engineering school or engineering major. So if that's something you really want to do, we're not the school for you. You might have the talent, all the talent in the world to play at the Division I level, but you got to make sure that school's the right fit for you, and you're doing your research on the program, because we see that quite a bit. We just want to make sure that you are doing everything academically, so when we are in the recruiting process, no hiccups happen to where all of a sudden you're a guy and we want you, but you're academically ineligible. Then we have to reevaluate, and then we're scrambling. So we want to make sure the kid is, academically sound. There's not going to be an issue there. Also, how is he in the weight room? I think that's a huge, for me, that's huge. I like to talk to the coaches because, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, how you are in the weight room, it tells me how much you care about the game and how much it is important to you. And then that's just my experience and what I've seen. I think that's huge. And then the other thing too is calling your coach and see what kind of teammate you are. Are you a I guy or are you a team first guy? Are you worried about how the team does or how you did personally in that game? Because like I said, we're looking for, a specific guy to come here at St. John's and be able to contribute. I mean, we're looking for guys that are hard as baseball, the right thing on and off the field, things like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I like what you said about doing your research, because you got a lot of kids that just have no clue about the academic side, and they have no clue about the athletic side either, and they see St. John's and they see the basketball team on TV, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a place I want to play, and they really haven't done any kind of research, and that's so important, because you may be sitting at a school where they don't even have your major. So I thought that
Right.
was a really, really good point. Now, this is a big one that I think that most kids want to hear about, and I preach it
Sure.
all the time, and I talk about it in my recruiting talk, but I want to get your take on it. Is what is the best way for a high school player, high school athlete, high school recruit to get on your radar? I know that a couple of things that we've talked about. Should they be emailing you? Should they be emailing you with video? Should they just be trying to go to Perfect Game, whether it be tournaments or showcases, and get good numbers on their Perfect Game page or PBR page?
Right. Yeah.
Just have their travel ball coaches reach out, or go to a camp, or just go out and play. Like, what is the best way to get on your radar?
I think each program handles it differently, but for us, we see a lot of value in emails with video. That way, you have an email introducing yourself, kind of give us your a player profile per se, like attached, like a PBR or a perfect game, and then have some video to back it up as well. So one, you're introducing yourself to us, and two, there's some information that we can actually look at, and then if it's something that we click on the video we like, then I look at the videos all the time. It's not like we get these videos and we just delete them. No, that's not how we do it. We actually take the time to look at each video. Hey, maybe this guy's an interesting guy. Then we say, okay, he might be on our board to go see, and then we go call the travel coach, and we talk to him about you. And then if that progresses, and it's somewhere he's a prospect we got to follow, then we want to go see high school games or summer ball games or whatever the case may be. So I think the best route for high school kids is to email the colleges with video, have your perfect game or PBR profile attached with your coach's information and your high school / summer schedule. So in the case that we do like you and we think that you could be a fit for us, all the information is there. We're not trying to scramble and talk to 14 different people to try to figure out, when the next best time is to go see you.
I mean, that's everything you're saying is music to my ears, because that's what I preach with our kids all the time.
Yeah.
In a generic email where you just say, "Hi, I'm so and so. I go to so and so high school. I'm so and so." You're a dime a dozen. There's 8 million of those emails that you guys are getting a day. How you're going to separate yourself is put a video on there that you show. What's your swing like? What are you running? What's your velocity like? What do you look like on a mound? Like now. You separate yourself from the average everyday player that is emailing St. John's and saying, I really would like to come to your school. So I think that everything you said is spot on with giving information, but separating yourself with some sort of video to make to make you stand out. And go ahead. No, and if you don't stand out, then it is what it is. But that's the only way that you're going to get to kind of separate yourself from the average kid that's trying to go there.
100%. And the other thing too is to go out the video side of it is now more than ever at the collegiate level and the professional level, they are doing a lot of video scouting. Mm-hmm. You can't be everywhere at once.
Sure.
So the next best thing is video.
Sure.
So we're East Coast, obviously Northeast school. If I like a kid out in California, I can't be going there every weekend. That dips into our travel and recruiting money. What's the next best thing? Video. So we can go from what we do is we watch the video, we chop it down, really, see how you move, and then we go from there. So there is a lot of value with sending in video. It's the next best thing to see you, other than seeing you in person.
Yeah, it's definitely, the game has changed. The recruiting process has changed significantly in the last 5-10 years, because this wasn't available 10 years ago, or when we were in high school sending out videos like it is today. Like it's such a tool that these kids could use that you don't really have kids slipping through the cracks anymore. Would you agree with that?
No, I'd agree with that 100%. I mean, with Twitter, with Instagram, with all the stuff that's information available online, it is really tough to slip through the cracks. I mean, not to say it doesn't happen every once in a while, but it's
Small. Yeah.
the more you can be, the more you can be visible, the better. The more people are going to actually see you.
How much do you guys, and I'm going to talk about for your players that you have there now, and then I'm going to talk about recruits. How much do you guys rely on technology-driven data, like Rapsodo, Blast? Do you guys use that at St. John's with your players?
So that's an interesting question because last year, I would say, was a technology race per se. I mean, now you're seeing it in college baseball where you got to have the Rapsodo, TrackMan, Blast Motion, and all these different types of technology to help and enhance your guys and get them better. And that's something that when Coach Blankmeyer was at St. John's, he really, really wanted to get more knowledge about and be able to transfer the technology and the metrics and all that stuff into helping our guys get better. So we're as a program, we're kind of novice in that. I mean, I know Coach Brown is pretty in depth with our pitchers on the Rapsodo part of it. We use Blast Motion, and when we have Rapsodo hitting as well. We're getting TrackMan. That was supposed to be done in the spring, but obviously everything had to be put on hold. So there's, as far as these metrics and stuff like that, we have all the information for our guys if they want to see it. Now, we use the data, especially Blast Motion, to after every, let's say, batting practice or practice in general, we'll kind of sit back and look at those numbers and read them and be like, hey, this guy's inefficient with maybe his rotation. And then we will go and talk about it and do some drills to isolate rotation and get him better. We also don't like to, I think the technology and information is good, but we don't want to, overdo it with our guys to make them be the robots in the box or on the mound, stuff like that. So it is important, just because we can find some inefficiencies in the way they hit or throw that maybe we couldn't see with our eyes. So it just provides us, another level of evaluating these guys and seeing where they need to be coached without really overdoing it to where they're kind of robots and they're taking the athleticism and the way their body moves out of their ability to play.
Yeah, I like that last part that you added, is not creating robots. Using that technology to help you what you can't see, which is that's a perfect way to put it, but not creating robots. I thought that's really, really interesting. So I'm going to stay on that same topic and kind of go to metrics. And we're going to talk about recruiting first with high school guys. What are the metrics that you guys are looking for, let's say at a school like St. John's? In terms of, let's just take a picture. Are you looking for a certain velocity? For them to even get on your radar? Are you looking for a certain exit velo? Are you looking for a certain 60 time? Or are those things not even matter? What do you think about those particular metrics or any other metrics that you guys use?
That's a good question. It all depends on the type of player you're recruiting, as far as grade, age, what you're looking for. I'm not necessarily worried about their 60 time from a corner infielder that has a lot of power. I'm not really worried about that. Or a catcher. Now, center field obviously need a guy to run. Up the middle, they need to be athletic and be able to run and have some agility to them. So it kind of all depends on position to position. For us, I mean, obviously we want every guy to run under a 7, but that's just not going to happen in some cases. As far as exit velocity, and this is just the way I look at it. Obviously it tells you how hard and far you can hit the baseball, but it also tells me how consistent you can be. Let's say one time you're like, oh, I hit 100 exit velo, but every other time you're 84, 85. Well, that just shows me that mechanically you're inconsistent, and there are things that need to be worked on in order to get you to the place where you need to be. So, I'm careful with all that stuff because sometimes it can deceive you, just because, if they're using metrics and they have it all on a stat sheet and they email it to me, and I'm like, oh wow, this guy was really good in every one of these categories. But then I watch him, live, and it doesn't play on the field. then it doesn't really matter to me
Sure.
what you do, because it all has to be applied on the field.
Yeah,
you can have 100 exit velo off the tee, but if you can't hit a breaking ball in the game, or you can't flat out hit, I mean,
Sure.
what does that matter for us?
So it's
If that makes sense.
It's used almost more as a tool for you guys. It's not the end all be all, but
No.
it's a tool that you guys use to help you evaluate players. That's kind of what I'm getting, and I'm also getting from you that it's a sliding scale. So the slower your 60 time is for a corner infielder, the further you better be able to hit the ball. The more you better.
I would say so. Sure.
And then vice versa. The worse you are offensively, or you're not a power guy as a corner, you better be able to run, or so on and so forth. So there's got to be some sort of sliding scale there,
Right.
at least for the position players.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As far as pitching wise, I mean, our Coach Brown does a great job with our pitchers, and he could, obviously go in more detail, but he loves using the Rapsodo for our guys to get them better and show them where they could get better, show them what pitches actually work, and basically what he uses it for is what pitches work best off fastball. Is it and it obviously depends what kind of fastball you have. If you have one of those good four-seam fastball that creates a little rise, or you sinker ball pitcher, what kind of pitch you should play off that.
Sure.
And just manipulating pitches to complement that fastball. So I know he loves that. He's really in depth with it and does a really good job. And as far as metrics and stuff like that, he obviously the way recruiting is now is it's all younger. Everything's young now. We're looking at 22s and 23s, and so we got to be able to, see these kids throwing out the mound and hitting baseballs and see if there's any room for improvement. So we got to look at body types.
Yeah, all projection.
All of it. All of it's projection, because let's say a kid, he's a 23, is throwing 82 to 85, but he's got room in his body to grow. That's something we're interested in. Or, same type of thing. The kid's got long levers and he's he's driving the baseball and we look at the body type. Hey, there's room to grow. That's something that we have to take into account as well.
Sure. Okay, that's really, really interesting. If I'm a guy, let's just kind of stay on that for 1 second. If incoming freshman for you guys, average. What do you think the average velocity an incoming freshman is coming to you guys? Velocity on the mound.
Okay, good question. I would say average. There's some outliers here, obviously.
Take the outliers out. Yeah, just your average guys.
90.
90. Okay, so 90 miles an hour. What's your average?
89, 90, I'd say.
What's your average middle infield, outfield 60 time, would you say?
Good question. I would say 6'7".
6'7". Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then exit velo. Your average position player, exit velocity.
95, okay. 94, 95, I'd say.
Good. And then what about your catcher's pop times?
1.9 to 2.
Good. Cool. Very cool. So I mean that's pretty much what we preach at your level is those numbers. So that's very informative.
Yeah.
What is the number one thing that players need to work on when they get to you guys on campus? When they get on campus their freshman year, what do you think? What is the one glaring weakness a lot of your freshmen have? Do you say that they haven't really focused on in their high school ages, or whether it be a physical thing or a mental thing or a strength thing? What is the one glaring weakness you think that you guys have to clean up when you see these incoming freshmen get on campus?
So, I mean, gosh, man, I mean, that's a good question. But I would say marrying all those into one, like physical in the weight room, getting used to being in the weight room 4 or 5 times a week, maybe even 6, just depending on what week and what phase we're in. The workload as far as taking ground balls on the field and how long we're on the field, practicing, 6 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever the case may be. Academics. staying up, maybe staying up later than you anticipated working on a paper, kind of, and the responsibility of being away from home for the first time. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into that. And I would just say, honestly, the number one thing is just workload is, getting your body used to being on the field that many days a week, as far and lifting as well, because the schedule can be pretty grueling on a freshman. So it takes them, honestly, I would say a semester to get used to it and to understand that, hey, you're going to take tired swings. Your body's not going to be 100% every day, and getting comfortable and figuring out a way to give 100% with what you have that day. So, I mean, I wouldn't say, all of our hitters struggle with, pulling the baseball or anything like that, because each guy is different. But I would say overall workload and getting yourself into being able to adjust to body soreness, tired, workload, classroom, all that stuff. I mean, I would say it takes a semester to really be able to figure that whole thing out, because it is a lot at times. So.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. And I think that I got that feeling when I went to college as a freshman, and you probably did as well. It's just, the workload is not even just the baseball side of things, but what you're doing school-wise. And there's just a lot on your plate, and you got to try to figure out, prioritize things and figure out how you're going to get everything in a given day, because your days are long. You got a lot to do, and so that's definitely a huge thing. And I'm going to talk about in a second. I'm going to get into like a typical week in the spring. What you're doing each day. But before that, I want to get into a question on your mentor, Ed Blankmeyer, who obviously was a legend at St. John's for so many years, and he's moved on now to coach at the pro ball level. What's the most important thing that you've learned after playing and then coaching with him?
Gosh, dude, that's a very loaded question, because I go on for hours about that. I mean, I'll just say this first. That guy's one of the best baseball guys that I've had a pleasure of playing under and coaching under. His mind, the way he sees the game, his in-game, the way he does stuff as far as, maybe it'd be just changing pitchers or just the in-game feel, I should say, is just like through the roof. And something that can't be taught. You just are born with that. And the other thing too is he is always learning. He's always, he always wants to learn. He's thirsty for it, whether it be reading, trying the technology stuff. That's one thing that he always preaches to me, is always, try to, get better every year, whether, read a lot, don't settle for being mediocre. Just try to improve yourself year by year. And that's something that was huge. And then he always preached that, it's about the program. It's not about, one pro or one coach or, the one player. It's about the program as a whole. And the way of creating a good culture is creating a relationship with your players. Being able to have those open-ended conversations where it's, player comes in and talk about something, doors open, and you can sit down and have a personal conversation with coach, because that's something that he really preached, and he really cared for his players, because he always said after every huge win that he got, maybe it was his 100, 200, 300, whatever, all the way up to 800, he always said, I didn't win these games, you guys did, so it's all about you, so thank you. So he was just, I mean, I can't say enough about the guy as far as, him personally and as a baseball guy. Just something that a guy that you don't stop learning from every day you step on the field. There's something that you always learn from when he's on the field. So it was a pleasure to be able to play under him and work for him. So it was a great experience that I'm grateful for sure.
So the question that we let off on, Danny, is you breaking down a typical week for a collegiate baseball player in the spring, starting with Monday.
Okay, so there's obviously two schedules, fall schedule and a spring schedule, and they differ vastly, just workload and whatnot. But for the spring, I'll take you through a week. Monday is usually our off day, NCAA. makes it mandatory for one off day a week, during the spring. So that's usually our off days. Monday. Tuesday, we have 9 a.m. lift. And then after that, guys usually have class. And then depending on if we have a game that day or practice, just depends. But if we have a game, report to the field around 12:30. Most guys report at 12:15ish. Then you go through your pregame routine, and that includes fungo work, pregame batting practice, cage work. Every program does it differently, but we make sure that we get our fungo work. Guys in the outfield are getting their live reps off the bat during batting practice, cage work, all that stuff. So we're looking to get a bunch of work in before the game just to make sure we're prepared without overdoing it. But we want to make sure our guys are ready to go and feeling good heading into the game. And then depends, obviously, games start around 3 o'clock during midweeks, and, those could be either 3 to 4 hours, I would say, in between that time. So you're probably spending, I would say a good 6-7 hours at least at the field during those days. And then if we have practice, same type of thing. Practice will start at 1. I like to get guys out there early for early work. And that usually will be, we'll start at, if practice starts at 1, we'll get guys out there starting like 11:30, and we'll just go groups. And whoever wants to, get out there, we'll put them in groups and do it that way. And then we have a practice from 1 to 4, and then some guys want to do work after. That's optional as well. And then, guys will go to their classes if they had it. If not, they'll go home. But, even on practice days, on Tuesdays, you're looking being at the field, 4 to 5 hours, I would say. And then, same thing Wednesday. If you have a midweek game on Wednesday, it's the same routine as a Tuesday midweek. And then Thursday is probably more light because, we're heading into a series during the weekend. So, you'll lift on Thursdays, then guys will go to their class and head out to the field. We like to, make sure they're not on their feet for too long on Thursday. So it's more of practice starts at 1 o'clock. We'll probably be done by 3:30, 4 at the latest. Just to make sure we're getting our work in, but not, killing them before the series. And then Friday.
Well, let me stop you real quick then. So on Thursday, that's obviously if you're not traveling. If you're traveling, you're getting out sometime mid, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, obviously, whether you're flying or driving. But that's your travel day after your practice. Yeah.
So usually we leave on Thursdays to go where we're going, and that's early plane rides or bus rides. And then when we get to wherever we're going, we usually practice. We make sure we want to practice that night just to get the lay of the land of the field. If there's any weird things that the stadium, brings, whether, lines or the way the field plays, how the ball bounces off paddings, just, kind of, different things that we want to make sure we get the guys on the field before the game so they get accustomed to it, as quickly as possible. So those, Thursday game, like if we're on the road, Thursday can turn into a really, really long day.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
I said absolutely. And then you go right into Friday, which you're going to, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is going to be the same thing. What are you looking at there for game-wise?
Yeah, so our weekend series are obviously the most important, especially in conference. So usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the same, and just the times differ. But we'll get these guys to morning breakfast. We usually like to wake them up around 8:30 to make sure they're getting up, and moving around and not just being lazy in bed all day, because we found that the more you lay in bed, the more tired you are, and just losing focus or whatnot. So we make sure they wake up for breakfast, get a breakfast in there, and then we'll go for lunch around, I'd say, noon. And then after that, these guys probably have about an hour for themselves, and then we're on the bus heading to the field. And we're watching them take batting practice, watching the opposing team, making sure, that we're doing our homework pregame to see if there's any, little tendencies that we can pick up on. And then it's our turn to take batting practice. And, that's where we do our work. And then, especially when we're away, things happen really quick. And, that pregame time goes by really fast. And so we got to make sure we're getting guys prepared. And then it's infield, outfield, and then it's game time. And that's when we just let our guys go play, have fun, and compete.
Yeah, so you're looking at, obviously on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're looking at, 7 good hours of being at the field or prep work between, getting to the field, batting practice, warming up, stretching, the whole thing. You play a 3-hour game. By the time you get out of there, you're looking at a 7-hour day. On Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and especially on those Saturday to Sunday, back to back, going from like a night game to a day game, you're getting home at 10 o'clock at night, and then you're going right to the field at 9 o'clock in the morning. So, the weekends are crazy, and then you're getting out of there. If it's a away series, you're getting out of there, heading home. You got that Monday where you can kind of take things a little bit easier and obviously get your classwork done and so on and so forth. But, you're still evolving in a week. You got lifts. You got, lifts once or twice a week. You got practice every day. You may have games during a week. You got your travel day on Thursday. So it is a hectic, brutal schedule for the spring. Would you agree?
I would agree 100%. I mean, and that's where, we touched on it earlier, and I won't go into, much detail about it, but that's where we have to have that mentality, because, Saturday, Sunday, your body starts to wear down. And so that's where, the mental side of the game is really important for us, because physically, I'd say Friday you're probably going to feel great, and then Saturday, Sunday you're not going to, physically you're not going to feel great. So you got to work with what you got.
Yep,
but it is, it's strenuous, and we preach, nutrition and doing the right things off the field and getting to bed, getting your sleep, and that way you can, carry your energy and your strength through the whole week, because it is taxing.
Yeah,
and that's what you got to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking at 50-something games too, and it's a long season. Last question I'm going to give you. All right, okay. This is a loaded question. If you could give a high school baseball player one piece of advice that is looking to play, at the collegiate level, what would it be?
Wow. I would say, and this is pretty broad, but don't worry. Because, we see so many guys worrying about lineups, what they play GM, like, oh my God, I'm going to end up being the first string or second string. What happens if this guy gets hurt? Like, how do I get in the lineup? Like, and so they lose sight of just of getting better every day and not and things along those, because you see it, and especially with the younger guys. I mean, obviously the juniors and seniors have been through it, so they know it. But you see these freshmen, and they're just worried about everything, worried about playing time. Worried about what this guy's doing, what that guy's doing. Not worrying how to get themselves better every single day. I don't know if that answers that question, but I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, that definitely answers my question from like a college standpoint. But if you're a high school player, junior, senior, and you wanted to give, they want to play college baseball. That's their goal, to play college baseball. What's the advice you're going to give that high school player? That says, I want to play college baseball. Do you have one piece of advice to give them?
Yeah, I mean, I would always say, be the hardest worker in the room, because it will take you long. They'll keep you playing this game for a long time. Always outwork the guy next to you. And I always say, with our guys, just outplay the guy that you're playing against on that other team. So if I'm catching, I'm going to play that catcher. I'll play their catcher. If I'm playing first, I'll play their first baseman. It's always, and I just think that it just stems to how your mindset and your hard work. I mean, you sign up, when you sign that paper, that national letter of intent, it's all about you know what you're signing up for, the long days, long nights, the travel, all the rigorous stuff that you're going to go through, the academic side of it. So just work your butt off. Good things happen with that. I've never heard a coach or seen it or experienced anything where hard work didn't pay off. Mm-hmm. That's for sure. And I know you've you've had some experience with that too, Rob. I mean, when was the last time you saw a guy that worked his ass off and good things didn't happen?
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time you saw a guy that regretted the work that they put in,
Yeah.
or regret the work they put in? You don't really see that very often.
No, and to touch base with that is like when you're done playing and you look at your career, no matter how long or short it might have been, you always want to, be able to say, I left it all on the field. You don't want to, leave your career with what ifs. What if I worked harder? Or what if I did this? Or what if I did that?
It's a terrible feeling. Yep.
Yep. So that's something that I preach to our guys and make sure that they're leaving it all on the table and working as hard as they can day in and day out so they don't have those regrets.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, Danny. Appreciate you being with us, man, taking some time out of your busy day. Obviously, good luck moving forward. Hopefully this all ends soon. And, good luck moving forward over at St. John's, buddy.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me. Stay safe out there.